Hello, I wanted to do a video on narcissism. Um, I have been watching some wonderful videos by Dr. Ingrid Clayton, who talks about the impact of narcissism and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And one of the things that she has addressed is the hidden nature of it, the denial and the minimalisation, which makes it a very confusing and often missing piece of the puzzle for people who might spend their lives um, trying to fix themselves through therapy or various other healing pursuits. And it's the hiddenness that I one I I want to talk about in terms of our society at the moment, um, and what the function is. I've just written some things down here. So I've written down that narcissistic behaviour is for a person to meet a need in a not in a direct way, but in a way that they don't feel can be met in any other way, because it involves manipulating other people, other human beings, often hurting them, and in order to indulge in that kind of behaviour, there has to be a belief in the person that they don't have access to relationships, money, admiration from others, acceptance from others, inclusion in society, any other way than to indulge in this narcissism. And and so they have a lot at stake to defend their behaviour. And uh, chief of which is this minimalisation, denial, gaslighting. And in a way, what we see happening in our wider culture today is that actively manifesting in our leadership. So you've got a leader who's very vague about um, how he's going to do things. He's had all these donations to the National Party from various corporations that he's now giving tax breaks to and different contracts and blah de blah. But it demonstrates that the way our culture has developed, it actually reinforces narcissistic behavior. It reinforces this idea of my needs are paramount, even if it means hurting your needs. And it's the opposite of collaborative cultures where people work together for the common good. And that might mean that you don't get everything that you want, but you are included and your voice is included. And my thinking how this has translated into therapy, that we often have people doing one-on-one therapy for quite long periods of time. Certainly, seems to be something that was common in the United States, that people were in therapy for years. And the problem with one-on-one therapy is the only dynamic that you're working with is the one between the therapist and the client, where there's a power differential, the therapist supposedly objective, but of course nobody is objective. Everybody sees the world through their particular lens and interprets events through that. So one of the ways that I feel that we need to be addressing people who have experienced narcissism, as well as people who are using narcissistic behavior to hurt others, is in groups, because the dynamics naturally evolve, and we're dealing with here and now examples of how people cope in those situations, and ultimately the potential to understand what it is that they're trying to achieve by this behaviour. Because with denial and minimisation, there's a necessity for suppression of certain emotions, certain um, abuses, behaviours, um, maybe the suppression of any insecurities in the abuser that they are very keen to hide from themselves and from others. I think this is a legacy of the Victorian colonisation that happened in this country, where emotions like anger, desire, um, joyful expression, even have been suppressed, um, and we we are the poorer for it. We've have have now a sexual abuse epidemic, a emotional neglect epidemic. We've got highest levels of domestic violence in the Western world behind the United States. Why is this? And uh, we are not going to address these problems by saying this is you individually. They are problems that relate to our cultural understanding of what it means to be accepted in our society. And at the moment, what is accepted and rewarded is narcissistic behavior, which means that very few people are extremely wealthy, and a number of people are homeless and poor. And when the mechanisms of how that operates are um, questioned, or evidence provided to show that the uh, mechanisms aren't working in the way that they should do, um, people who are exposing that are discredited. And there is someone that writes regularly on these YouTube videos with seeming intention to discredit me, but to uh, dismiss any personal interest in why they would be doing that. So it's it's we can say narcissism is this person and they're bad, but when we do that, we avoid understanding our own tendency towards narcissism, our own role in the dynamic of enabling narcissism, because narcissism has witnesses. It isn't always just so in a family, other children will know abuse is going on, and in in their own need for safety will collude with the abuser, and this will carry on into adulthood. Um, and so much of the power is in disrupting this lies in the hands of the enablers. And if you like, we could say that's the bulk of our population who can feel the inequity of the current situation and yet feel like they don't want to rock the boat, or they saw what happened to the protesters at Parliament and they don't want that to happen to them. And it's it's I suppose what we have to come back to is, how do we want our society to be? Do we want it to be a narcissistic relationship, and an increasingly a disempowered one for some people? The enablers who kind of are bribed or threatened with losing their jobs if they don't toe the line, that sort of thing. And the narcissists who, at the base of it, have some core fear that they are masking with this behaviour. Um, so it's really just to open up uh, um, thinking about how we might address these things, but particularly a group context um, provides an antidote to the hiddenness or the denial or the minimization. You've got more eyes watching what is happening and more opportunity for people to understand what it is that I do, what it is that I have received, what have I seen and not spoken up about. We all have it, and we have all done aspects of the three roles, but it's not necessary to keep on behaving in that way. And that's my invitation, as a way forward, particularly clinically.